Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. On this one we are going to be doing a timing chain job on our 51 Pontiac Chieftain. Now this applies to any 33 to 54 Pontiac straight 8. Ours is a 51. This will be a step-by-step tutorial on how to do this. Everything I struggled with and had to go through, you'll probably also have to go through, so pay attention. And there will be some timestamps for each part depending if you want to see a certain thing before a different thing. But yeah, let's get into it. Alright, so the first thing you're going to want to do is to drain the coolant from your radiator, because it will need to be removed. On the 49 to 54 Pontiacs, if you look down below the car, the drain cock is located right here. Just turn it counterclockwise and coolant will start coming out. Of course, find somewhere to drain it into so your animals don't drink it up. And because this is basically new coolant, I have some containers here that I'm going to put it into for storage until we get the radiator back in. But yeah, nice spot for a drain cock. Not too hard to find on this particular car. And if you want the coolant to drain faster than this, you can take the cap off to let air into the system. And that'll help it drain a little bit faster. And before the pan gets too full, I'm going to go ahead and fill up part of the jug so I don't overfill or spill any out. We're at about 4 quarts now, according to the measurement on our container. So I'm going to fill that up there. And now that your radiator is done draining, make sure to put away and store all of your coolant properly and away from children and animals, and even label it if you need to in case other people are going to use it for something else. I have mine here in this cabinet. And also don't forget to wash out your pan and funnel for whoever needs to use it next. And with that, our radiator is now bone dry of coolant and ready to be removed. Alright, to remove the radiator and shroud as well, there's going to be 4 bolts. I actually had to add these in. When I got the car, the radiator was out and in the trunk. There's going to be a bolt right there, a bolt down in there, and then the same thing on both sides. Hose clamp here, and a hose clamp down there for the heater core, and then another one down in there. This thing weighs a ton too, so getting that out with coolant would be near impossible. So we have it drained right now, so I'm going to take those out, and hopefully it'll just lift right out. It'll be a bit of a struggle, but someone's got to do it. That's one way of doing it. Alright, so I kept getting caught up on this, not wanting to clear that lower pipe, and then the heater hose pipe would not come off, so I just had to end up cutting it. I see those hose clamps down in there. I mean, I got it in there with the fan in there. It might have been easier to take it off, but yeah. This thing's just not that well designed into being in here. Put the rads out, seemingly undamaged. Most of those other dents are from when I actually got it, so yeah, so far so good. So now we got to work on getting this fan and everything off and getting this belt off too. With the alternator and battery and belt removed, everything's freed up as far as room is concerned. Water pump spins nice and freely, so that's not a problem at all. I think what I'll do first is take the 4 bolts off the fan here. And pull this whole thing aside. Get that hose clamp off to give us more access to the bolts. And hopefully this whole pulley comes off when I do that. I'm not entirely sure. Doing that will get us room for the water pump, so we can take that off. And then have way more room to get down to our timing cover down by our crank. I'll have to take some pictures and whatnot to remember where some bolts go, because I've never done this and I haven't really seen any information on it either. But shouldn't be too bad. There's fairly a lot of room here to work, so take care of this. And because it's a 73-year-old car with none of this ever been removed before, if I had to guess, don't forget to treat some of your bolts. I like to use PB Blast or this Deep Creep. If you never tried Deep Creep, definitely give it a go. Same price, a little bit more expensive, I believe. Only comes in one size like this, at least at the parts store. But yeah, it works very good. I've never really heard any complaints. It's very foamy, as I guess, you know, sea foam is in the name. Let's put a little bit in there. Get some of these other bolts here on the water pump cover. I'll get the ones down there as well. Alright, the water pump is now out. First time this part of the engine has seen the light of day in over 70 years. Yeah, very big water pump for such a small little hole here. I mean, only 5 bolts are holding that thing in. But now we have all this access to these timing cover bolts that we did not before. And just to show you the size, this thing is kind of a monster. That's where the gasket, I guess, is supposed to be. Maybe this whole thing's the back part's a gasket. I'm not sure, but this thing's really free, so I really don't see any need to replace this. We'll clean it off, of course, and maybe even paint it, but for now, yeah, nothing too bad about that. A lot more coolant is draining out too, so make sure to have your pan on standby. So the cover can pretty much be divided into 3 different sizes. These bottom bolts for this bigger bracket are all 5/8. These top 4 or 5 are 1/2 inch. The pointer are 9/16. As it would turn out, that bolt, those 2 bolts below the balancer, and that other bolt, and the other one down there, are actually motor mount bolts, the front motor mount. Didn't know this, I have a jack underneath there. I'm going to try to jack it up when we put it back together. But in the meantime, to get to those bottom bolts, I need to remove the balancer with an impact. It is a 13/16 socket. And that bolt is a 13/16. Again, these are all standard, so I'm gonna get an impact, buzz that off, that slides out. I did look on eBay or just on the internet to find an old one to make sure it was pinned, and it is, so it only goes in and out one way, hopefully. Once that's out, we can remove the bottom set of bolts in the cover and pop it off and hopefully find what we need to find. Alright, the next step is to take a 13/16 socket. I'm using an impact to take off this bolt. I'm not really sure any other good way to do this, so if you don't have an impact, I recommend going out and finding somebody who does and borrowing it. But without further ado, let's zip this thing off. Oh shit. Okay, a big washer came off somewhere. Pretty gnarly, pretty big old bolt if you ask me. Sit that in a pile. I'm really hoping this thing just slides off. After wedging on it between the timing cover with a screwdriver and a crowbar, it's starting to get loose. Alright, there we have it. 51 Pontiac harmonic balancer, and it is in fact keyed. I don't know if you can tell. Keyway right there, right there. So this can only go in one way, so you can't really mess this up. Ooh, it's a heavy balancer, that's for sure. And now that's out of the way, we have access to our 2 front motor mount bolts. And once that motor mount comes off, we'll have access to the rest of the bolts in the timing cover. And that thing will come right off. In fact, we can already see a couple more bolts there on the cover. The last 4 bolts are actually found on the lower bottom section of this timing cover. You actually have to access them through the bottom side of the engine. They are a pain in the butt to do, not gonna lie, because this thing is attached to them, or it's on top of it, like so, to mount our motor mount, which is also in the way. So in order to get to them, you have to jack up the engine as much as you can, and then use a box end of an end wrench, a 7/16, and then go up and underneath them, right by the sway bar link, and turn it counterclockwise. It takes a while, it sucks, it's not a lot of room, I don't really have an easier way to do it. With that being said, the cover is off, and here is our chain. It is not broken. There's a decent amount of slack in there. I could almost probably pull this thing off. Alright, so Pontiac straight 8 valve timing. How do you do that? It's kind of a pain in the butt to tell, and this thing is so dang greasy, it's nearly impossible to find the mark. But I cleaned it off. If you look just below the edge of my phone there, you can make out a little tiny circle engraved in that cam gear. That is our cam timing mark, and there is one on the crankshaft gear as well. I will rotate this to show you guys how to line those up. It just kind of lines up kind of at an angle there, like we're taking a ruler, straight line straight through at an angle, and they do go end to end. So I'll turn this thing over and show you guys how that looks. Okay, alright, it's a bit easier to make out on the crankshaft. You can kind of see above the wrench there that tiny little circle, and if you look at an angle, you can barely make out the one on the crank. In fact, I'm actually going to highlight those for us so they're easier to see. Alright, there they are highlighted. If you can compare before and after footage here, you can kind of tell where they kind of used to be. It's not the greatest with this camera, that's for sure. But that's an idea. You can kind of see if you draw a straight line through here that everything is like perfectly in line if you had a ruler or something. So yeah, luckily I have this emblem here out, otherwise you would never really be able to tell the timing for sure. But yeah, that's the timing. If this were like off one, or that was up one, or down one, or this was off one, then yeah, our chain would have skipped a tooth, but it's not. It's just very loose. There's just lots of slack on this chain. There shouldn't be that much slack. At least it ran though. I mean, it ran reliably too. It's just, I don't know, I'm in here, I don't really trust that. And we have a new chain, so we might as well new old chain. Might as well put it in. But that's how you verify the timing on a Pontiac straight 8, just like that. This brings me to my next problem. We have a couple of really, really, really dirty and greasy and gross parts here. We got the balancer, the cover, that lower motor mount. I really don't want to put them on, back on, this greasy and nasty. I mean, it's just going to be a mess putting it back together, getting my hands dirty and all tools dirty again. Don't really feel like doing that. Now, if I had a parts washer, this really wouldn't be that big of a problem. I would just stick them in the parts washer, scrub them all down, blah, blah, blah. But I don't. I'm out in the middle of the country. I don't really have any efficient way of cleaning these. The other thing I could do is just buy some Purple Power, put in or to spray them down, whatever, scrub them off. But that doesn't always work according to plan, especially with this amount of preserved grease and oil on here. So I'm going to try a method I've never tried before. Gasoline. I'm going to put these in this bucket, fill it with some gasoline, let them soak in the gasoline, and see how well it cleans them off. I've heard that it does decently well, but I never tried it myself, so might as well give it a go. I'm kind of excited to see how it works. Plus, if it works good, I'll take out the gasoline, get the pressure wash it off, and they'll be good as new. So that being said, I'm going to put those in the bucket and get some gas. Gasoline is $2.89 a gallon right now, so compare that to the price of Purple Power. I wonder which one's the better cleaning value. Already, that I can see us taking off some of that shit. Some Pontiac green underneath some of that. Might move that around and put the balancer at the bottom, below the cover. So really, it's only like $8 or $9. I know gas is a little expensive, but I'm not sure what's going to happen to this gas once it's done. Can't really burn it. Hey, you can see it's already becoming like a muddy water. Gross. Don't light a candle around here. That won't end well. Well, I suppose we can just turn that one piece upside down if we need to. The balancer's already submerged. We're not pouring that much gas into a tank, but a bucket instead. Alright, here's our gasoline cleaning vat. It's definitely nasty looking, and I think it's getting nastier, which means it must be working. Should probably move that to the shade so it doesn't evaporate. I don't know if gas evaporates from sunlight, I doubt it. But yeah, we'll see how that turns out. I'll let it soak for forever, I guess. I don't know, until I get this camshaft off, I guess. But yeah, we'll pull it out in a couple hours, see what it looks like. But alright, it is the next morning. The stuff soaked in the gasoline overnight, so we're going to see how it turned out. I think some of the gas went away, but not enough to make a difference. Alright, here is that motor mount first. Definitely cleaned a lot off, and you can see the original paint underneath there too. Oh boy, I gotta fish for the rest of it. Alright, the tiling cover here. pretty good. Don't get this shit on your hands. I just did. The balancer is down in there somewhere. Cat, you gotta watch out. Oh man. Might not get that out once we dump some of this out. Okay, well that's not good. Alright, and there's the balancer. Definitely cleaned up quite a bit. Oh yeah, wow. So all that grease and stuff that was just caked on there just scrapes right off. Oh, yeah. In fact, there's a lot of shiny metal underneath. And some original paint for that matter. I just took some of it off. Yeah, I'll probably scrape this off for a bit. Get the hose out, hose it off. There's the back side of the cover. Did fairly well on that. Definitely not a bad budget way of doing this. I think it turned out decently well. Yeah, so that just comes right off now. Basically just turns the grease and the rust into just a fine powder, and then you can just take it off easy. So not too shabby. So yeah, we'll get this stuff cleaned up and then it will go back into the car. Alright, so the parts are out of the gasoline. Cleaned off and drying up here. Only thing I used to clean them off was the garden hose and then a little plastic brush that I had, and these things cleaned up pretty dang good, I will say. Should probably lay some paint down on some of these. I mean, you can kind of make out a little bit of Pontiac green there. It's a pretty color. I don't have any paint cans or anything of that same color here, but I think for now I really don't mind the look of this old worn stuff. So a little bit of dust residue on there. I'm just going to leave them how they are, put them back on. There's not grease and nasty crap all over them that'll stain my fingers, so that was the main thing I was dealing with here. The other thing I figured out while soaking the crankshaft main seal here, it's actually 3 parts. There's this kind of main base here, this kind of springier design thing here that sits down in there, and then this cover that covers the cork seal. Now the old cork seal disintegrated in the dirt somewhere. I had to pluck that out, but our kit came with one. Luckily it fits. I was hoping that it would, and it wasn't the wrong one like the water pump gasket, but it'll work. If not, it's roughly this size here. Kind of these little indentions in there. I wonder if those mean something. Anyway, so that cork will go, the seal will go in there. I guess that'll sit in there. That'll sit in there like this, and then this kind of springs down on top of that to complete the seal. So 3-part seal. Don't see a lot of those these days at all, so it's kind of cool that that was the thing you could get back then. Serviceable seals, really. I mean, everything back then was, but yeah, that is how the crankshaft seal works on this car. Alright, we let everything soak in the gasoline overnight. Got a bunch of our hardware here and the cam and crank gear. I also cleaned off the old chain just so I can compare it to the new chain, just to have it, I guess. I don't know. So I'm going to go hose these things off and we'll get ready to put this thing back together. Alright, here are the parts. Nice cleaned off. Nice and dry. And here's our old timing chain compared to our new one. Or sorry, our old timing chain compared to our new one. You can see this one is a lot more floppy. This one is very much more robust. All right, here's the bucket after I dumped all the gasoline out, and that is nasty. Gasoline definitely did something. You're also gonna need to clean up your gasket surfaces. There, all around there. I recommend cleaning them up before you put the new chain on or after you take the old one off. Right now the old one's still on. I'm gonna get my gasket scraper and my wire wheel or a Bristol disc brush and clean those up nice and good. Before I put anything back together, I do want to get rid of all this nasty grease that's been left behind. So what I'm going to do is use some of this engine degreaser here. I'm going to spray it down, wipe it all off, hose it off, clean up this mess of crap that came off from taking off the cover, just to get it clean because that grease really does stain skin really bad. So the crankshaft, the camshaft locking nut here is going to be a 1 7/16 socket. Goes on like that. I'm gonna get the impact that thing off, take our cam gear off, and get this chain off, and start cleaning up our surface. I got the gear off. I had to be full trigger the entire time. I mean, this nut was on there to say the least. I'm not even sure what the torque spec is on that thing, but it's impressive. It's very hot too. I don't think we messed up the threads or anything. Anyway, that's off now. Clean that thing off with brake clean. That thing was on there. Holy crap. Now I'm trying to get this chain off. Alright, multiple struggles later, I finally managed to get everything off. A jaw puller is going to be required for this one. You might be able to use 2 pry bars to wedge it off, but I wanted to be more safe. You're going to need a bigger one, or I guess a medium-sized one here. Originally, I wasted my time and tried to go around the hub of the gear, on the inside edge of the cam gear. It wouldn't grip, so I just went on the outside of it, like on the chain. I mean, we don't need this chain, so it wasn't really a big deal if it got broken or anything. And it took it right off. The camshaft one was more pressed on. This one actually slid off as I was pulling it, so I guess the crank is not as pressured on there as the other one there. It's not a big deal. So now that those are off, I have them soaking in more gasoline. That's because that oil, whatever that is, that crankcase oil in there, is just so nasty. I mean, it just stains your skin. I scrubbed on this for like 5 minutes with like the best soaps you can buy at the store. Yeah, it wouldn't really come off. So now that that's soaking, We have our new chain ready over here, and I took the liberty and painted some stuff up. I didn't really want to paint this, but I figured nothing's really keeping it from rust proofing now. And I was in there, so might as well make it look like I've been in there, you know. Yeah, it's not Pontiac green, it's just matte black. Almost came out pretty glossy. Hey, that is, oh no, semi-gloss, okay. But yeah, they didn't look too bad. There's that brace there. And our new fans up there. So yeah, tomorrow I'm gonna get everything taken off, cleaned up, start putting this thing back together. Okay, turns out I was wrong about our timing chains, which is actually a good thing. So let me show you what I got here. This here is the chain you can buy on eBay from California Pontiac parts restoration, whatever, for like 30 bucks. I thought it was wrong due to the width of the chain, comparing our new chain to our new old stock chain to our original chain off the car. You can see that it's physically skinnier. So I figured it wasn't going to work and I was screwed. Well, just now got the chain off. Put these guys to the side here. Put it on, and it actually fits. And it fits rather well. Just a little bit narrow, and there's some slack, a little bit of back and forth slack, just the tiniest amount, but it definitely fits, which is a good thing for any Pontiac Straight 8 owner looking to do a timing chain job. That chain will work on your car. So got the Pontiac, California Pontiac chain. We have the original OEM Pontiac Morse chain. Morse is the brand that made these chains back in the day, and that's what my new old stock one is from GM, so it's going to be a better quality than this California one. Fits good there. And here is our new old stock chain from the 40s, 50s, 30s even maybe. So yeah, they all work. I am actually glad this one does work, so now people know if they're afraid to do a chain that I didn't buy the last straight 8 chain available on the whole internet. Luckily you can actually go buy some more, which is good for us Pontiac people. But yeah, good discovery there. But regardless, I got this new old stock chain. I'm going to use it. So now we can finally start getting things back together. You can make out the words. It says Morse right there. Morse. On our old chain, if you look up at our new chain, also says Morse. So these are the right chains. I'll make sure they fit with the gears and we can start putting everything back together. Alright, so putting the chain on, you do want to have it dangling to where both of your dots line up how they were previously. If you're off enough a chain, and if it's off one dot, like it tries to go this way or whatever, or it looks like it's going the wrong way, then you're going to be off a tooth. But that right there is pretty much good. Pulling on both sides, they're pretty much lined up perfect. I sprayed some PB Blaster on there, so we're going to see what this does. Doing a test fitting here of the chains. They're pretty much lined up good. I probably have to turn over the crank or the cam to get them just to like spring kind of together when I put the chain on, but otherwise that's about as good as that's going to get there. There it is with the chain on. I will say it is kind of tricky doing it with one person, kind of like you have to start the crank pulley before you can, basically both gears have to be on the chain going on at the same time. You can't just put one gear on and leave the chain loose and put the gear on after that. It has to be at the same time together. It's a little tricky doing that. Otherwise, once you get both of your notches, your keys, and your crank and cam pulley lined up, you kind of gotta just hold it and kind of wiggle it and everything. Grease it up a little bit, it'll slide right on. And yeah, that's pretty much a perfect valve timing from last time. So I'm gonna press these on the rest of the way, kind of hit them on, see how far they go, and get ready to tighten the bolt down. Then of course what you're gonna do is you're gonna want to start it up before you put everything back together, because if you do the valve timing wrong and it doesn't run, then you're gonna have a bigger problem. So chain is on. I tried to find a good torque spec for this camshaft nut. Apparently they don't exist, so I just got the impact and sprayed some deep creep on there to kind of lube it up, and just impacted it on. That right there is as far as the impact would let me put it on, which is about the space where it used to be. So yeah, I'm gonna call that good. Just enough to where there's a tiny bit of thread peeking out. It's about perfect there. So yeah, new chain's on. Already way less slack. Also, don't forget your crankshaft seal. So reassembly, first thing you're going to want to do is to jack up your engine so that motor mount is separated from the block so you have more space to work in there. Then you're going to want to get your cover on, your timing cover. So timing cover is two pieces, has the main cover and then this bracket that helps mount the motor mount. The four screws that hold it in are these tiny 7/16 that were a pain in the butt to get to. And those go through the bottom, not the top, so we're going to struggle with that. We got a little helper today. She's pretty kitty. You a pretty kitty? Anyway, so those go first, and then we're going to get our gasket in there too. See how this goes. Kind of a bunch of random bolts here. I didn't really do a good job keeping track of them, so it's going to be a little bit tricky figuring out what goes where. But water pump will mount it up there. Here she is back together with our re-gasketed water pump, new fan, painted up timing cover down there, hard to see. So this timing chain job took about a month and a half to actually fully go from draining the coolant to having a non-leaking radiator. A couple blocks where the water pump was leaking, our radiator was leaking. Finding a timing chain was rather difficult, but we ended up finding the right thing so everybody else can now know what to do instead. Yeah, it went pretty good. The new chain had a lot less slack, and I think the car honestly is a little more responsive. I feel like it has a little bit more power. Um, the oil pressure definitely, I think, has gone up because I think it's just that much more tight together when it spins and everything. Our crank to our cam and the oil pump spins just all that much better. And yeah, the car just seems to run a lot better, and I'm glad I did it. You never know if this thing can snap or cause a problem. Or if they snap, they can ruin your camera crank gear, which are even harder to get than the actual chain itself. I think it does run a bit cooler with the new fan as well. My temp gauge is kind of crap the bed right now, so I've been running with that one just around the yard and up and down the street. So I'll get my aftermarket gauges on there hopefully sometime soon. But for now, I'm not going to drive it too hard. With that newer fan, I'm sure it will run cooler, and I'm kind of excited to see what it's going to look like with those new gauges in too. But now that time has finally come to start parting ways with our Chieftain, so a lot of preventative maintenance has been done to this thing for the next owner. So now I know how to do one. Other people know how to do the timing chain job. It's been done for this particular car, so people can enjoy it and not have to worry about it. Hope you guys enjoyed this one, and stay tuned for our next little project. Peace out.